Hello, everybody, and welcome to the welcome to my channel, Wisconsin Hugs. This is the a new thing that I'm doing for my channel. It's called Story Time, and I am putting together a story called The New World Leader, and this is part 3 of that story. And we're going to begin this story with explaining the definition of Adonacam. And this is the name of the, I don't know if we want to call him the protagonist of my story, but this story centers around him. He is the main character. He is Lucifer's chosen, and he is just arrived on Earth. In my story, he's arrived on Earth coming from inside a meteor that had traveled the depths of space and wound up making its way to Earth during the third trumpet judgment. And he emerges from the crash site. And we'll get to that story in a sec. But we'll look at his name here. And it means whom the Lord sets up. One of those which came with Zerubbabel. And he had 666 children. Basically, he was... the history of him was that he had been spent his whole life as a slave or a prisoner of Babylon, of King Nebuchadnezzar. And finally, the king decided to allow a group of Israelites to go back to their home. And the name also means, the sons of Adonacam, 666 in number, were those who returned from Babylon. And so there's a direct link with Adonacam and Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. And this occurred right around 506 to 410 BC. And his name means, my Lord has risen up. And so now we're going to start telling his story. Al Jazeera news footage has just obtained cell phone video of an unknown man as he leaves the fiery explosion of a meteor crash site. He appears to be glowing like an angel. Adonacam loved the fire as the top warrior of his beloved master, Lucifer. The fire was his home. And now here he was on Earth. And he was enjoying the earthquakes, the fires, the destruction of cities, the loss of oceans, and the destruction of almost all the entire ships of the world. New York City was gone. California was gone. Florida was gone. Washington, D.C. was gone. There was something that Jesus had once said about this great tribulation period, that the entire earth would be experiencing birthing pains. Well, he was the baby of and his name, Adonacam, His name meant the Rising Lord. And so he began walking. He was on a journey. He was heading to the ancient lands where Babylon, the great empire, once existed. And it would be his job to rebuild that nation and make it a city of glory. And he was to become the leader of the entire world. But he had to walk the desert first. There was no other way to get to that ancient city of Babylon, which consisted of multiple cities of Iraq and Iran put together. And he'd been walking for probably a few days when the very first human, well, maybe I'll let him tell you the story from his own words. The very first human I came into contact, and during my walk, was a woman at the well. "I'm thirsty. Would you give me a drink?" I asked the beautiful lady standing there at the well. She turned to me, and she had tears running down her eyes, and she was crying. "The water is poisoned. There is no water anywhere else. My whole family is going to die." Well, this was going to be my first miracle. I put my hands on the well and said my prayers and asked for a blessing. "Do you have faith?" I asked her. She just looked at me, dumbfounded. I said, "Go ahead, take a drink." She thought I was crazy, but she was really thirsty, and she thought she didn't have anything to lose. She was either going to die from thirst, or she was going to die from drinking poison water. And so she drank. And as she drank the water, she realized it had been cleansed. And it was cool and refreshing. And she smiled. And then she laughed and she kept drinking. And finally she gave me a drink from her very own ladle. And she said, "Thank you so much. It's a miracle. Who are you?" "My name is Adonakam. Follow me, and you will never thirst again." And so she left her family, her children, her husband, and she became my very first disciple. And together, we started to make our way across the desert, heading to the city to claim my throne. So that is the end of this part of the story, and we will continue on with the story of Adonakam in the next part. So I wish you all a good night. Wisconsin hugs.